thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting this community and this teacher and this way of teaching. This is not agreeable to everyone. And if you're still here after some of the chaos we've been through, then I appreciate you very much. So thank you for coming. Nothing to accomplish here, but there's a lot to see. I may be able to help you with that. The title of this evening's Dharma talk is Shaping, that's the word, shaping suffering, shaping it. And that can be understood many different ways. One of the ways that I am wishing to teach that or talk about that tonight is when we receive suffering, when we're suffering, we want to modify it, we want to change it. One of the ways that shows up in terms of passion is to blame someone for, or blame something, or instead of just receiving the suffering, we think there's a cause. And is there? Relatively, yes. In the illusion, there's always a cause. There's always, if this happens, it's caused by that. If this happens, it's caused by that. But if that's your only information, then this is a very simplistic way of working with consciousness, which is buying into what? Concepts, ideas, conclusions, exclusions, opinions, beliefs, disbeliefs, and so on. But what I would like you to consider is that when you're receiving whatever difficulty, suffering, first noble truth of the Buddha, when you are receiving this, notice if you're doing anything with it at all. If you're just receiving it. Trungpa Rinpoche, being quite a drinker, used to use the example of, it's just a straight drink, no vermouth at all. I'm not going to use that, I don't drink. But it is like that, it's just drink, no condiments, no nothing on it, just whatever shows up. Don't add anything to it to soften the load or don't do anything with the suffering to shape it into something else. Some people, I'm not saying it's any of you, of course, will take that suffering and reshape it in such a way that it's, what's the modern word that's often used for this, is weaponizing. Turn it into a sharp point. We not only reshape it, we sharpen it so that we can push it back on somebody else. You can do that in seconds. It doesn't take time to reshape that. Very difficult area. And I'm not particularly recommending that you stop that. I would say be aware of that. Be aware that you're taking something, suffering or difficulty or frustration or any of the comedy of errors that is arising from your television screen to your kitchen table to your workplace, coworkers, family, so on. Look at that very carefully. And when you look at it, I'm saying observe that. By sitting practice of meditation, you're training yourself over time to be a receiver, a listener, taster, smeller, thinker, seer, feeler. You're learning, you're retraining yourself to just receive. This doesn't mean you can't reach out occasionally, but the more you reach out of thoughts, emotions, conclusions, opinions, beliefs, the more you contribute to the confusion of the world, although you may think you're doing wonderful, and the person next door to you, because they don't see you breaking any laws, and they see that you're living pretty much the way they think people should live, right? Be totally approved by that person or by that society or that culture, but you may be adding to the confusion, adding to the turmoil, adding to the circularity, adding to that which is what? Samsara. If you understand the basic teaching through sitting practice of meditation, through studying the Dharma, through studying with a teacher, if you understand deeply, not the understanding that is built up of concepts and ideas, although that's part of it, but if you understand what the basic teaching is that is called dependent origination, then you will just stop picking and choosing everything. You will also notice that you pick and you choose. but it's coming out of consciousness, not out of the misunderstanding in consciousness called me and myself and what I like and what I don't like and what I should do and what I won't do, what I will do and what I'm not gonna listen to. You know what I'm talking about. We all deal with this all day long. I don't exclude myself from that. I couldn't teach this if I wasn't immersed in the same circularity that you all are dealing with. Did I say something that bothers you?
No, my pen is malfunctioning.
What was?
My pen,
Oh, we better get another one.
that's been doing it.
So I was hoping Michelle would say yes, like that last thing you said, I'm leaving forever. Not really, not really, it's a joke. So consider this. That part of the consciousness we refer to as the narcissism or ego or the seventh consciousness, the Klesha mind, is picking and choosing, pushing, pulling, shutting down, passion, aggression, and ignorance, or some combination of that. Through watching, pushing, and pulling, and shutting down, eventually you will not only see that that happens dependently arisen, there's no person behind that. That's how we see it, by watching what comes and goes. You don't necessarily see that there's no self by looking for somebody. If you look for somebody, you won't find anybody. But that's a conclusion, and that's more relative stuff. It's not that easy. Like there isn't anyone. There's no self in this context. That's a relative path teaching. That's not fruition. You can't find fruition. You can't find it because fruition is a relative term that this happens, that happens, and then this comes out of it. It's better than that and it's worse than that. So I'm asking you to consider in your mind, use that image if it's helpful to you, shaping suffering. When you notice you're uncomfortable, something is bothering you, something has perplexed you, or something is just out irritating or disrespectful coming maybe from another person or from a situation. Just notice how difficult it is just to receive that. And we want to make it into something else. We want to make it into something someone's doing that is wrong. Someone that should not be doing that. This gives us a little bit of space or breathing room for the ego, for that part of consciousness that is continuing to grasp at itself. This is what you're here. If you're a monk or if you're fully ordained or lay ordained or wherever you're at on this, if you're in this room and you're listening to me, then you probably are interested in what has been pointed to way before any of us got here, is a fundamental understanding of what this is. You can't find it in a book. You find books that point. You find ladders to climb. You find ways of approaching it. You find a cushion, you find a wall, you find the sutras, you find the Dharma books. You listen to a Dharma talk, you ask questions. But the fundamental understanding is not an occurrence. But ego is always looking for occurrences. Am I getting better? Am I more awake? Am I more mindful? Am I? Ego. So my recommendation, based on what I'm saying in this talk, is the title of the talk, Reshaping, or Shaping a Suffering, taking the suffering that just arises naturally everywhere, in all the sense fields, terrible sounds. In the book study today, I gave you a good example of the difference between yelling and screaming. There's a difference. Remember that? Wasn't it uncomfortable? You can imagine how I felt. I produced it. Or maybe you can't. I know you don't have much of an imagination. About 90% imagination. So it's about awareness, it's not about right and wrong. I'm sorry to take that away from the whole society that's running on it constantly, everywhere you look. And it's so convincing to hear someone who is very intelligent, way up in the high 70s or whatever IQ is, really intelligent and has conceptual things down, and they've lived for 56 years or whatever, and have several degrees back to back, and they're able to hold forth in this area in such a way that it's very magnetizing. But it's just a highfalutin form of relative truth. The ultimate truth cannot be said, cannot be spoken of. Those who try to teach it may use words, but you'll notice the way in which they use words don't lead to something. They're pointing to something, not leading to it, where you can say, oh, finally, climbing this mountain forever, finally, it's the top. It's better than that, it's worse than that. So lots of ways of talking about this reshaping or shaping suffering, taking what you receive that's uncomfortable or painful and finding some way to make it about somebody else. Somebody else did it, and it doesn't seem to matter whether they did it or they didn't do it, or whether they had maybe they were just a trigger. But you can't get bullets. You continue to use that image. You can't get bullets out of a trigger. Trigger is just that. It's just a trigger, not a weapon. So it is about being aware of that in your mind stream, the way you or me or any of us, something shows up that's difficult, and rather than just receiving the difficulty, just receive, it's like hot air, cool air, it's like wind. It just arrives, and it doesn't have a source, and it doesn't have any purpose, and if it's suffering, then it's probably quite uncomfortable. Don't abandon, this is awareness practice, don't abandon what is showing up or what you think it is, because what you're doing is you're just coming right back and dropping your 25 cents in the turnstile of the train that goes in circles around and around and around and around. In your mind, in your life, you don't have to do that, but it may take some time to, we might call it discipline. Discipline is just about awareness. It's not about accomplishing. It's not about controlling something. If the awareness is there, anything that shows up, maybe it's someone else's control, you're not controlling anything. I sometimes say, for those who want to listen to me, I'm extremely ethical, but I don't obey anything. Because of situations, I look at any situation, I know exactly what I need to do next. Not because I'm so smart, or because I'm evaluating it, or because I'm judging it. The boundaries are obvious. Don't stick your hand in fire. It's that obvious. You just don't do that. But if you, or me, or any of us are not following the guidelines that somebody else thinks you should be following, you just will lost a friend, I guess, or something like that. Not wrong. People do the best they can with what they understand. They're doing the best they can. Anybody I know doing the best they can, even the ones that seem to be burning a hole in the ground with their circularity that they think is a straight line. Be aware of this in your mind. Whether you're sitting, whether it's your kitchen table, whether you're talking over the fence to a neighbor, whether you're talking to another Sangha member or interacting with another, especially in that area, that's a really powerful area, because anybody who is your Dharma brother or sister has probably worked very, very assiduously at trying to see who they are and what this is. That doesn't mean they have some kind of relative success, or they're the sweetest person you ever met. They might be having a terrible time with it. And so if you're in this community, then do the best you can to receive. That doesn't mean indulge or fight with. Doesn't mean just because somebody is throwing slings and arrows at you that you take it. But you might not necessarily pick those up and throw them back either. Keep it to a minimum. You can also reshape the suffering to go back towards yourself and blame yourself. I'm never going to get this right. I'm just a failure. No matter what I do, I can't seem to deal with this or deal with that. Sometimes that shows up without even that kind of reshaping, the kind of reshaping where it doesn't look like you're doing it. Sometimes if it's negativity, sometimes it's called depression. You think you're being depressed by something, that something is just arriving like weather. That's an illusion. Excuse me, you need to see that. When I say you need to, maybe not. You don't have to believe what I'm saying, but from what I've been looking at, it looks like you, if you're here and you are on this path and you're taking this seriously, then I would say as much as you can, make it not about necessarily listening or even remembering what I said. It's about you find it yourself. You don't even have to understand what I'm saying. Are there some questions?
When you're bowing, I think your talk title is Shaping Suffering,
Yes.
and you've referred to it a couple of times as reshaping. Is there a difference?
Same thing. Just was easier to say shaping. Reshaping means the suffering comes in a certain shape. You're reshaping it. You're shaping it so that you can point it back at where you think it came from. Like blaming a trigger for what the gun does. I mean, the metaphor only goes so far. Kind of dumb if you get into a discussion about it, it doesn't even work. It's just using the image to help you or me or any of us to understand that nothing comes from over there. If you think it does, we're going to fight. You're going to fight, or you're going to go the other direction and join that. Don't join. Don't abandon. Don't ignore. Those are the poisons. In different words, more.
When you're bowing, just a question on dependent origination. You said if you understand dependent origination, and I didn't get the last of it, but what is it we don't understand about dependent
You
origination?
don't understand that anything you see is not separate from anything else you see. You separate them out and think this is higher, this is lower. It's not that they aren't relatively, but fundamentally they're not different. This is a basic teaching of Sandokai, the equality of sameness and difference. Just a way of talking about it using relative statements that clash with each other. Sameness, difference. And then come in and say the equality of that. Those are concepts about something that the differentiation that's there that you perceive is actually a projection, it's an illusion. It's hard to you have noise, you have motion, you have light and sound and smell, and you have time. This is over here, tick, 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 tick. That's so convincing that we believe it. We believe that we have thoughts back here and thoughts ahead, and now we're thinking this and we were thinking that. Now that's gone away, now they're thinking something else. Very, very convincing. And you don't have to get rid of that. You don't have to do anything. But if you're on the path, then you need to understand that basic teaching of pratitya samutpada, which is everything is dependently arisen. No single thing comes from its own side as something. That's an illusion, including the so-called self or I that is tied into this body-mind complex. If you see what this is, you'll see that you are not this organism. You're not the eyes, you're not separate from the eyes. You're not the nose, you're not separate from the nose. You're not anything here, but you're not separate from it. That's the equality of sameness and difference.
Oh.
Perceived in consciousness. You're actually looking at it. Is there a question somewhere there?
I have a question. I'm trying to understand things can be dependent outside of themselves, but how would I understand something being dependent by its parts? I mean,
So what's you just word by its parts? There's three words. Those are put together as a part of a sentence or a phrase, but they're not separate from each other. The sound that's coming out of your kitchen if you have one, is not separate from that which is listening to it. I mean, I can go on conceptually, but I'm saying the conceptual will only take you so far. There are books about this that try to do this conceptually, and some of them are extremely convincing and powerful. But you have to do it with consciousness. If you do it with consciousness, you will not know what you're looking at, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, feeling. You won't even know who you are. You'll have no longer have a separate identity. You won't see anything but yourself everywhere. Not yourself, the person who thought you were, or that you were when you were first were in kindergarten or something like that, or went through high school. Not that person, not the person who got a graduate degree or just missed getting one, but consciousness. Consciousness, so there's no longer a past or a future. You actually see it in consciousness. The way you're asking the question is saying to me that you are tied into the concepts about what is being discussed rather than what is being discussed itself.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm reading about Jason Kappa's changing the base of the eye right now,
Okay.
and it was saying gaining familiarity in that way was a method for changing your base from the body and mind to the wisdom meditation.
Yes, awareness practice, lots and lots and lots of formless meditation. And are you doing a tantric practice, a creation completion practice?
I'm trying to. I don't live near
You have a teacher?
Lama Kathy from Columbus, KDC.
Well, I'm familiar with her. So just do what she says. And are you doing Nundro practice or?
I've moved out of Columbus 2 years ago,
Okay.
so I haven't found anyone yet.
Well, why wouldn't she work at a distance? You have a good connection with her?
No, I don't.
Okay, well then that's,
Oh.
that ends that discussion, if you don't have a good connection, so. But I would say what you're reading, Jason Kappa, continue to read that book, and there are other books are in that same area, you can read those also. Lots of books. I have a whole book list of 50 books or so if you need some help in that area. It doesn't sound like maybe you do. You could just continue your reading.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Further?
Wonderful. How important is failure?
Failure, it's important to see. It's important to see the failure. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking about, and don't be too concerned about it. Just notice that there's a feeling of failure at things. Failure of not getting ahead or making mistakes and so on. Don't fix anything.
Wonderful. Is it important to
Fail? Yeah, it is. And if you're on this path, as I understand it, been taught different ways, but if you're on this path, as I understand it, then it's going to be a series of failures. And as even Trungpa Rinpoche talked about this when I first heard it some 30, 40 years ago. The path is a series of disappointments until the final disappointment, which is awakening itself. And why is it a disappointment? Because you don't get to witness it. You don't get to be a person who awakens. Awakened just is there, but you're not awake. There is no person. No way you can awaken. Yes, sir.
In low bowing. A moment ago, you emphasized that if you see what this is, you won't know what you're looking at. You won't know who you are. You won't know these things.
Yes.
But presumably, you would still grab a knife by the handle and not the blade.
Unless you're trying to show off.
I'm curious about that. It seems like there's still some kind of relative
Yes,
knowing
and I
that you
can
don't believe in it.
And I can give you an example right now. As you're talking, you nod your head. You're not thinking about nodding your head. This is part of you. You also put your hands together like this. You didn't think about that. You just did it. I can't be sure that you did, but it's just part of, everything would just happen very flowing, very naturally, very dance-like. And that would happen, that would show up right in your relationship dynamics. So very amazing and something you just realize you're not keeping track of anything anymore. You can't keep track of anything because the whole idea of a future you're headed towards or a past you've just left is gone. There's just this. And I don't mean be in the now. I don't teach that. That's another concept. I'm just saying that there's not words for it, but there's never anything else with this. In time, that kind of location, or in space, that kind of location. All of those are unreal. But whatever one you're in, that's the particular illusion that you're in. You're just in this illusion. So therefore, you just function. It's just, it's easy. There's no challenge. There's only a challenge if you're concerned about how you look, how you appear, what people think, if you're following the law, if this is any number of things. I'm sure you've dealt with it. We all have. We had parents. You're going to have to deal with that at some point. Right, wrong, should be, shouldn't be. This shouldn't be. More about it if you have it. It's a good area to ask questions.
You know, thank you. I'm just curious about what you're pointing at with the word no, because it seems like it involves some kind of belief. Like it might appear that you still know how to function, or you still know someone's phone number when you need to call them, but you might not believe the things are true in some way. That's what I'm trying to suss out.
When I say don't believe, don't disbelieve, don't ignore, that's talking about the path. As if you can, don't accept, reject, or look away. And the path is about noticing how you can't quite help that because you're still in a physical form. You still may be going this way and that way, pushing and pulling and shutting down. But you're not really convinced of the whole thing anymore. So there's a lot more spaciousness there. Sometimes that can be called a sense of humor. You're just more relaxed about what you're doing. You're not concerned about which end of the knife. You know what it is. You may know more than others who are struggling with knowledge and struggling with right and wrong. You're not struggling with right and wrong. You know that there's no such thing. That is something that is set up to control people, starting with children, starting with oligarchs or society where we're trying to control everybody. Just like, and I got a really good dose of that 4 years in the Marine Corps. I know what it means to follow orders and be controlled. Very, very difficult to do that. More?
Sorry.
Yes.
That brought up a thing. I was watching an anime a couple of days ago. It's about a monk. It has a monk who fights in a tournament, and his master poisons him to try to rig the tournament against him, and he acts like a doormat to the master after losing. Because it made me think of since it was the one that's from out of China, that the idea of not being a doormat is a good thing to other people.
You have a question?
No, I was just kind of asking, how do you know when to actually be skeptical of things and when not to be?
Be skeptical of everything. Don't believe anything. Don't believe anything. And don't go the other way and start disbelieving it before you've even investigated it. But if you don't believe it, you don't disbelieve it, you don't ignore it, then you're able to actually see what it is. You can see it. You're not believing it, which covers up what it is, and you're not disbelieving it, which is another way of shoving it away or covering up what it is. You're just receiving it. You just look at it and receive it. And then there's a possibility that you'll see fundamentally what it is. It seems that it's the way the teachings are presented down through the centuries, that everything becomes very mirror-like at some point. Everything you look into looks back at you. And what's looking back at you? Consciousness. This takes a long time. You cannot do this in 3 or 4 years.
Okay. How do you know what's suitable in learning methods for a person? I mean, I can understand things like, a very harsh renunciation and then other degrees of it. But how do you know, enlightenment, there's no time to waste. Ideally, everyone should just go the quickest they can.
Yes.
But how do they know how quick they can go?
Well, there's lots of advertisements about there. Even the Vajrayana is called the short path, or the adamantine vehicle, indestructible. But if you get on that path, there's some kind of an unspoken guarantee that you can attain enlightenment in one lifetime. I prefer to say it a little bit differently, and I've practiced that path extensively. Not as much as Padmasambhava has, obviously, but I practiced it a lot over the last 50 years. And I think it is necessary to see that you're already awake. You're already awake. This is a teaching that comes not only out of the Tibetan tradition, but also comes out of the Zen Chan Buddhist tradition and the teachings of the Buddha. Already the case. So you have to see it. It's like an uncovering rather than a getting somewhere. And it's the uncovering when there are still traces of ego clinging around, not going to be comfortable, because that part of consciousness does not want to not get somewhere, not be somebody.
Thank you.
So to come back to your question a little bit more, I would say, so may I ask your age?
Oh, 30?
Yeah, okay, so I didn't even start practicing formally until I was, 32. So from my perspective, you've got a ways to go to get to what you're talking about. It might take you years to actually meet the teacher you need to meet. Or you might take you years to maybe see that you can't find a teacher. That's possible. But you should look. You should study, continue reading Tsongkhapa. I can't recommend anything any better than that necessarily, the way it sounds.
I'm also reading the Visuddhimagga, and right now I'm on the wisdom section.
I have a recommendation for you.
Yes.
What do you think I should say? Huh?
Sit.
Yeah. Yunlong just said sit. So sitting meditation is good. A lot of it. Sit down, look at the wall, eyes open, not eyes closed. Eyes open, sit a lot. Read too. You're welcome. There, further, yes.
When you're bowing, earlier you said that ultimate truth cannot be spoken.
No,
Can we recognize ultimate?
because it's not something else. You can't recognize something you already are. There isn't anyone in here that isn't completely, thoroughly, and ultimately the Buddha, or the awakened one. You are the awakened one. There isn't, even to say one is extra. You're awake. Nothing sleeps anywhere. Yes,
So what is it that recognizes that awakeness?
consciousness. Consciousness without any identity there, just consciousness.
Is that consciousness recognizing itself?
It's been talked about that way. When people talk about it, that's one of the ways that it's talked about. Wisdom just sees wisdom. Wisdom doesn't see something else. It just sees wisdom. So now we have to look and think, what is wisdom? It's been referred to as an ultimate kind of knowing, without any particular knowledge, without any separation.
Does consciousness have feelings?
I don't know, do you? Any feelings? Consciousness is feelings. Does that look better? I want to be presentable. You are feelings, you are the thoughts, you are this, you are that, you are this, you are this, you are this. Not separate, you're this. Already are that. If you begin to understand through awareness practice, there's nothing to accomplish, there's nowhere to get, nothing to do in particular. Everything just, in your mind stream, everything has been held together by your ideas, opinions, grasping, hope, and fear, on and on and on, just starts to come apart. But it takes a fair amount of practice to do that, and it seems to take, not that you couldn't do it without the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, but you don't need to. You could have a a support in a teacher, a support in the teaching that's being presented, and a support in a community like we have in this monastery. Yes,
Aren't you bowing? If we're sitting in front of someone who's suffering and we don't feel that or sense that, are we not seeing, not separate? Are we somehow blocking or separating?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, if I were to take it into a story form, you say, somebody's sitting there and they're telling you how miserable they are, maybe, and you're thinking, I don't see that. Looks like you're totally happy. Is that what you're saying? Or, you? Or is it, I mean, I could go either or, or is it where, you can see that, someone is having difficulty, they're not necessarily complaining of suffering or anything, but you can't really see what that is, or in that area?
More in that area that you know that they're suffering conceptually, but you don't resonate with it or feel it yourself.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's not some sort of like empathy or feeling, does that mean there's separation?
But listen closely, let's take the very simple statement you made. If you're aware, let's go with that, you're aware that you can't empathize, or you're aware that you can't tune, that's awareness. It's not wrong, it's not a mistake, you're not missing anything. Awareness doesn't pick sides. The ego is the one that's looking for right and wrong, or success and failure, aware of something or not aware of something. The consciousness doesn't care, that's the beginning of it, that's the beginning of not knowing. That's the beginning of actually wisdom mind starting to show up in your mind stream. This doesn't mean you're ignoring that. It doesn't mean you're pushing that away. It doesn't mean you're grasping at that. It feels more like, just like a neutral state. You follow me? Yeah, you do. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm serious. There's an area there where we're slowly making our transition into just, it's like a neutral state. It's not actually neutral because you're totally receiving any expression on a person's face, any tone of voice, you're receiving all of this, but you're not leaving it, like I was talking about earlier, to reshape it. And when you don't leave it, it has the shape that it has. And that shape that it has may feel like you don't know what's happening. Ego's the one that wants to know stuff. Wisdom, there isn't anything wisdom doesn't know. And when you're slowly changing your allegiance, to use the fancy word, from the consciousness that is a self-centered, narcissistic, me area to just consciousness only, there's not going to be a lot happening there. Because the passion, aggression, and ignorance has been bleached out of it by awareness. By just observing. It's just an image, nothing really happens, nothing gets bleached. It's like that. It's like what used to be passion and aggression and ignorance, those kind of intense three poisons. Just by looking at them and not accepting, rejecting, or not doing anything with them, they start to lose their energy because they get their energy from agreement, opposition, or being distracted. Follow me a little bit? So you're already seeing it.
On the flip side, if we do have some sort of emotional resonance with someone suffering, seems like I might use that and tell myself that I'm seeing that we're not separate or something. Is that blocking me actually seeing that?
It could be, but if you're aware of that, then it's not exactly blocking. Being aware and being aware of being blocked is not actually being blocked. When you're actually blocked, you won't even know it. Others might see it or know it, but you won't, because your blocking tends to work from the relative point of view. But also that's still in a relative area. We're looking for results. We're looking to stop something, start something, be more compassionate. There are whole teachings that talk about exercising that compassion muscle Not against that, I'm all for it, but if you're in here, you're probably ready to hear it a little bit differently. Any more questions here in Zendo? Questions on Zoom? Jishin, go ahead.
Zimbabwe. What is suffering before it is reshaped by three poisons?
It's just the first noble truth of the Buddha. Life is suffering. We have nerve endings, and not only in the fingertips, not only in your eyes, not only in your ears, nose, tongue, body, but in your mind. Your consciousness is a huge receiver. It might look like it's producing a lot, and there may be some production going on, but basically it's about receiving. Ears don't produce sounds. The tongue doesn't produce tastes. The eyes don't produce sights. I mean, it can go on. You could say, well, obviously that's not happening. But we act as if we do. We act as if we have some say-so about this. We don't have any say-so. And if you assume that, then you will use the body and the mind to go in and try to manipulate things and reshape or shape the suffering into something more palatable, or it's just very complicated. And it needs to be seen, not repaired or fixed. There's nothing to fix. The Dzogchen masters of ancient times and current times refer to this situation as the great perfection. Dzogpa Chenpo, isn't that correct? Dzogpa Chenpo? I think that's what that means. This means it's already what it needs to be. This is what it means when the teaching, some of you have heard this teaching, live in enlightenment. Live in that. That doesn't mean you're going to be happy 24/7. Not talking about that kind of enlightenment, some kind of God realm state of mind that's always up. Enlightenment is not separate from anything. It's not separate from the deepest hell or from the highest heaven, nor is it fastened on to any of those. If you have questions, please ask me.
Zimbabwe. So is enlightenment suffering as well?
Yes, not separate. You can't find something that's separate from anything else. If you say enlightenment, there isn't anything that's separate from enlightenment. It just looks like it until you realize what this is.
When you're bowing,
I got a feeling this is going to be a funny question.
an possible contradiction. So
Oh, you found where I'm contradicting myself?
I'm just questioning whether I heard a contradiction or not. So
ahead.
when you were speaking with the gentleman who used to be from Columbus,
James?
is that okay? And Yun Long said, sit.
Yes.
You also said just prior to that, there's nothing to do.
Yes.
Is sitting doing something?
No.
What is it?
Doing nothing. Using a form. Sit down, hold still. Just sit there. Can't help but hear. You don't just decide to hear. You can't help but think. You can't just decide to think. You can't decide. We have no say-so about any of that. This is one of the things that people, when they do sit for long periods of time, weeks, months, years, decades, realize that you are not in control of this. It's a much bigger picture than just our little tiny grain of sand, human form.
So sitting is doing nothing?
Yes. Eventually.
Is sitting also doing something?
Yes, sitting.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought you were going to trap me there for a minute. We can go a little bit further, it's 7 o'clock, but we can go a little further if Anyone has questions? Peter, do you have a question? Okay,
Navid bowing.
Pete, go ahead.
When I meditate, and when I become aware of some tension in my body, the first thing that comes up for me is to let it release, or sometimes maybe more actively soften it a little bit. I was wondering if that is also shaping it into something else. Bowing.
Not in the way I'm speaking of it, no. If you're sitting here and your arm is sore, or maybe your back, you need to stretch a little bit or change your shape of your, that's quite a bit different than the kind I'm referring to, which is mainly in consciousness, blaming, more of the melodramatic kind rather than just the body mind. You're just sitting here. So if you have difficulty with your body, then you should pay attention to that. We're not doing this like sometimes the traditional Zen tradition is very macho. It seems to be out of ancient China and Japan, somewhat in Tibet. Well, just stay there no matter what. Tibet, they even have sit in a little box where you can't get out of the box. I'm not sure how they do that. I guess there must be a hole in the floor.
Navid bowing. I was actually mean the more subtle tensions inside the body. Not like when you're sore or something.
Okay, again, the way it's sounding to me, I see nothing in there to adjust or correct, or even comment on. That's a very subjective area, and your way of expressing it. To me, it sounds like what I need to do relative to you as you're asking me the question, just continuing to watch that, just be very aware of it. You don't have to change it, fix it, slow it down, speed it up, don't do anything. It may do some changes on its own, more so if you don't do anything with it, but be aware of it. Just be aware. And if you find yourself doing something like that, it sounds like your body awareness is already very strong. Not a compliment, just an observation from the way you talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Further questions? Yes, go
I
ahead.
have one. I was
James,
thinking about if you sit and you do nothing and you uh deductively go backwards of thinking I don't need to get up, I don't need to do this. This is anything outside is suffering, then your form is, and you go back, but get to the point where if you take away everything, you get to the point of nothingness. And thinking about a type of fear for that because it brings up like kind of the thought of extinction.
so I'm following you, and if we were having a conversation, then we could chat about it, but this is not about a
I'm
conversation. This is about right now, maybe
I'm
not, like, get off the ton, go away, but right now I'm a teacher and you should function as a student. So I'm not saying you might maybe know more than I do. It's very possible. But right now, I'm the teacher. If you've got a question around what you're talking about, I would love to respond to that.
about fear.
Okay. What
How
is
do you overcome fear as you going into contemplation on nothingness?
Well, first of all, don't contemplate nothingness. Let's
You
start.
just don't think about it?
No. If it shows up, then it's there, but don't deliberately contemplate it. The way I teach meditation might be totally different. Are you practicing Ashina and Lakton or Shamatha Vipassana?
Uh, yeah,
Yes.
shamatha meditation and I was trying to work on it was four methods of contemplating suffering in terms of if not for this, then not this, and then going forwards and backwards.
Yeah, I hear
Like
you.
if I had enlightenment, I wouldn't have the problem later. And then the reverse, that because I have the problem, it means that I wasn't enlightened before. That type.
That's quite the paradox. What's your question?
I was just asking about fear that comes up when you start thinking about nothingness because it's
Okay.
similar to thinking about
Let's
death.
go. Then I have to go back and I have to say the way that I teach is sit down, sit symmetrical, have all your senses open, in particular the eyes, face something like a wall or a closet door where nothing is happening, but your visual consciousness is open. You're aware of the door, you're aware of the space between your eyes and the door, and all your senses are open. Don't have any music on or anything like that. Keep it very, very simple. If a dog barks, that's fine, just include that. And then observe what comes and goes in the mind without comment. Don't count your breaths, don't do anything but just observe what happens. And if fear arises, just look at it. If it gets really intense, get up and go have a Coke or something. I mean, don't torture yourself by trying to force your way into fear. Take a break, then come back in 20 minutes or 20 days, for that matter, come back and start again. It's always about returning. The Buddhist path is not about maintaining anything as I see it. I'm not saying it isn't seen other ways, but as I see it, it's about return to the path, return to the teacher, the teaching, the community, return to the wall, return to your own consciousness, and receive. So you can do that. When the fear comes up, just receive the fear without trying to use any conceptual devices around it. And I'm saying this with respect to what it is you've been studying. If you feel like that, studying that material is what you need to do, then don't listen to me, go study the material.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Yoko bowing. Question from Stephen in Minnesota. Stephen bowing. Is sitting also doing everything? Bowing.
Sure. Yes, it is. Yes.
Hogan bowing. Is the awareness that arises in the moment, or that the awareness that arises, is it enough to see the truth?
Yes.
Do you speak of awareness that's strong or weak or somehow inadequate?
Makes no difference. There's no such thing. I'm not saying you couldn't have some kind of dynamic in your body where you become sick, or, a while back I had a TIA, or a mini stroke, and for a short period of time I couldn't speak. My mind wasn't doing too bad, I don't think, but then again, when I think about what I was thinking, I can't remember what I was thinking about. I think I was having a stroke. But I was in a state there where, there was some difficulty. So physiological things that come up, consciousness, body, mind are not two different things, but they're separated out, so we work with them in different ways. But they're fundamentally not different. But if something goes haywire in one, like chemical imbalance in the consciousness of the mind, and that can create a lot of issues and problems, as we know. Or something happens with your body that can affect what's happening in your mind. Something happens in your brain or in your heart, all of that. Is that where you're at? But fundamentally, if you're here, you're listening to this, whatever consciousness is on receive, then that's it. If you, as I said, whatever's coming towards you, whether it's difficulty or suffering or any of the different shapes that this 5 sense fields, including your mind, or 6, including your mind, take, just receive it. But I feel like you're asking about, is there too much consciousness, not enough consciousness, or some consciousness that's maligned?
Hogan bowing, you were talking about how awareness, for lack of a better word, bleaches out the 3 poisons.
Yes.
So I was leading into awareness being bright enough or powerful enough to bleach out a poison, and is that the way I would talk about it, bowing?
It's pretty good. If we continued on, I came up with the image short time ago, and maybe I heard it somewhere, I don't know, but the awareness, if it's prioritized, so you're just aware, whatever shows up, receive, so that which is receiving, it's like you become more like the sky and less like a cloud. You become more like consciousness and less like the thoughts, the emotions, the memories, everything is arising there. The ego wants to identify that because some feel good, some feel bad. We want to believe our thoughts, we want to fight, we want to, it's just difficult. And we will go to war with someone in order to substantiate or reify the belief in a separate being that has been wronged, or a separate being that needs to get closer to you. All the other shenanigans that go on with human beings. And so if you're training your mind, then over time, and it takes time, you'll eventually still have passion, aggression, and ignorance arise, but they'll be, use the word bleached out to some extent. But the complete understanding is seeing there's no personhood there. Because in your life or my life or anyone's life, causes and conditions may still need to erupt and fade away and then come back and then turn over sideways and get hot, get cool, get rough around the edges, get very smooth. Passion, aggression, ignorance, passion. Those are just dependently arisen. You don't have to get rid of anything. You don't have to change anything. This is why it's so ridiculous for people to try to control their emotions and thoughts. You need to see it. It takes a great deal of, for lack of a better word, bravery to do that.
Hogan bowing, does lack of a personhood escalate awareness?
If you see there's no one there, then there's just awareness and everything's consciousness. It still may appear like a very strong personality or personhood, because you're no longer concerned, the consciousness is no longer concerned with how he, she, or they appear, especially if they're functioning with the vow that got them to the understanding in the first place. Yes,
Hogan bowing, but you have said that you do care about your reputation.
I do. I want everyone to like me. How am I doing? Exactly. I'm not saying that's gone. I'm just saying it's just not true. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. But it doesn't mean I'm not really concerned about it. I've been concerned about it since I was born, wanting people to like me. This is ego. You don't have to get rid of ego. You just have to see that it's unreal. And it will no longer run your life. People may want it to. They may be very unhappy with the way you're functioning and not living up to this kind or that kind or some other kind of standard. But you're not functioning out of standards anymore. You're functioning out of what?
Vow.
A vow. Be with all things. If they show up, don't object, don't agree, don't look away. And if it's in the form of a human being, and they give you permission, you might be able to encourage them to train their mind. And how you do that may not be very tasteful to them. But you don't have a choice. You have a vow. You don't sit back and say, let's see, this person, I can probably help this person, but this other person might fight back. You don't have a choice. You might find yourself being very, very sweet and kind to somebody that you'd really like to bat on one. And you might find yourself being very, very disturbing and rude and challenging and accusatory of someone that you deeply love, and it feels so sad because they're having so much difficulty. I'm just giving you a couple of examples. They're endless. That's why Trungpa Rinpoche said once long ago, better not to begin. Once you begin, better to finish. Finish it. And that finish is journey without goal. There is no goal. It's just a journey all the time. More? We can take one more, perhaps. Yes.
Yep, following question, or a couple questions from Ath in the UK. Ath following, how do we not ignore actions that have escape qualities? Thank you kindly.
Have the what?
Escape qualities?
How do we not ignore them?
Yes.
I'm not sure what's being asked. Can anybody help me with that? No? How do we not ignore? Let's see, we want to stop ignoring, okay. How do we not ignore that? Why ignore it? Yoka, are you grinning at me? Or is that the person that's, are you translating that into your body language?
A little of each, probably.
Anybody understand what you're saying?
Is that,
Yeah. Sorry. I think what he's asking is, the question about navel gazing type of criticism. How do you know when it's not? But so my stuff just froze.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's the final question. Could somebody,
or running away? Is it a running away
is
quality?
that what he's asking about? I'm not sure what it's.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
it's the common question of how do you know you're actually making progress? Because the story of the navel gazers is that it's people that meditated in like around Italy in ancient times or the Middle East, and all they were doing was navel gazing without actually thinking. So they never made any progress in their meditations.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Good to make progress. Okay, I guess that's the final question. So thank you, James. Good to see you, and good to see everyone on the screen. And people who have been coming regularly, thank you again for participating in this Sangha, in this study of the Buddha's Dharma as it's being presented here. Thank you so much.